All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ATP Live Monday. I hope you can see me and you can hear me. Uh, Welcome. Just let me know if you can see me. Trying to adjust my light. You can hear me, right? Welcome to ATP Live Monday. All right. Okay. Just waiting for people to join us. Uh, all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ATP Live Monday. Okay, just want to be sure everyone can see me and can hear me. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm just trying to make sure my light is good. Um. All right. Welcome to ATP Live Monday. This is a program where you get to ask any questions that you may have about the health of your children, and we'll try and answer them in the next 1 hour. Major Evers, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, Thank you, everyone. For joining us, whether you are joining us on Instagram, on Facebook. We are not on Facebook today because of we're still having some technical issues with Facebook, but we're on YouTube, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. So I want to encourage you to kindly share the video to all the platforms that you can share it to so that people we know. I'm also just going to try and do the same. Uh, Trying to see how to share now, but I can't seem to find the link. Okay. All right. So, but if you have any questions, feel free to um post your questions, and then we'll try and answer them as soon as we can. So feel free to post your questions and we will answer them. Thank you so much for just joining us. We'll also try and just share. I know it's not like it's not as like our Facebook where it's easier to share the links. It's much more challenging on on Instagram and the other platforms. Okay, but it's all good, all the same. So welcome to ATP Live Monday. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have about the health of your children. We've got an hour to do that, and after that we can if you still have any questions, you are welcome to post your questions on our Telegram group. We now have a Telegram group as a backup to our Facebook, and our Facebook group will soon be open as well. And also, you can ask your question on our website, on our YouTube channel, on our podcast channel. So there are many platforms where you can always get a hold of Ask the Pediatrician. So feel free to uh, feel free to ask your questions there, but this is an opportunity for you to ask your questions in live. At least you can ask directly now and you will get your answers also straight away as well. But I can't see any questions yet. So just waiting for anyone that have a question. Feel free to ask your question. Okay, I hope we've all had a good day, and I just also want to remind us that our Ask the Pediatrician's 10th anniversary is coming up soon, so feel free to um, watch out for some of the events that we have planned up, including our acts, including our outreaches. So just watch out for that. Okay. I don't have any question yet. So if you're just coming, you're welcome. You're welcome to ATP Live Monday. ATP Live Monday is a program brought to you by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation, where you get to ask any questions that you may have about the health of your children, and we'll try our best to answer it in the next 60 minutes. However, if you have any questions beyond the live period, you are also welcome to post your questions on our Telegram group, our Facebook group, any of our platform, our website, podcast, and we'll try and answer them as soon as we can. But the most popular is our Facebook group, and now many of you are also using a lot of our Telegram group. So thank you so much for joining us. And just to let you know, beyond what we do online, we also do a lot of things offline, and we'll be doing our 10th anniversary medical outreaches throughout the whole country. So just watch out for that. So feel free to ask a question. I just want to notify us that there's been a report of an outbreak of diphtheria, I think in Lagos, and this is happening among school-age children. I'm sure the Lagos State government is going to come out very soon with more details, but just to remind us the importance of immunization. Let's ensure that all our children are fully immunized, and ideally some of our children should have what we call the booster doses of the vaccines. I know it's not so easy for some of us to even finish the 3 doses of the DPT, and now some of us don't even remember. So the 3 doses, some of us have not finished taking them, not talk of the booster doses, which ideally our children should be taking at 18 months and 5 years, because the immunity from some of these vaccines tends to wane with time, and so we're beginning to have a lot of cases among older children and adults. But more importantly, let's ensure that our children are immunized, especially if you have children who are going to boarding schools, who are in the dormitories and all that. It's very important that we get our children immunized. Loretta Mo, thank you so much for your comments. Say good evening. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much for also being here. We appreciate you, because if you're not here, then I'll be talking to myself. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. Feel free to share the link, because I can't get to Facebook to share link to Facebook today. But please share the link. I'll appreciate those of you on Instagram. If you're able to share the link to those on Facebook, I'm sure they can also watch on Instagram, or if they can watch on YouTube, that would be fantastic as well. But for those of us on Instagram, it's your day, so feel free to uh, post your questions, and then I'll try my best to answer them as well. All right, so you are all welcome. I still don't have any questions. I don't know whether Major Evers and Loretta, whether you are trying to type some question, but you seem to type and one letter or two, and then he kind of cut off. Just for you to know that I've not seen them. So feel free to type them fully. and I will answer them. But I was just trying to give some public health announcements about the diphtheria outbreak, which seems to be happening right now in Lagos. And I know we've been told that at least one child has been admitted to the hospital. So it's important that our children are immunized. We are beginning to see a lot of resurgence of some of these vaccine preventable diseases, and it only means one thing: we are not taking immunizations as we should be, because as long as we are getting our children immunized, they should not be having this outbreak as this completely preventable vaccine preventable diseases. So if your children are not fully immunized, please check the immunization card. You can always go back and get some of these vaccines. Even if you've mixed them, you can always catch up. That's good. All right, Major Eva saying, good evening. My son of 6 months, 2 weeks had malaria, was given malaria drugs and also Astifa for 2 weeks. He's currently on Astifa, but he's taking it for 9 days. Okay. But my concern is, your comment has been cut off, Major Evans. So you can feel free to update the question. What was your? I hope your child had a PCV done first before they gave Astifa, because Astifa is a blood tonic. It's an iron supplement, so it should only be given to children whose iron levels are actually low. And iron level is actually not determined just by the full blood counts. It is determined by the iron storage, ferritin levels. Most of our doctors don't do that, but that's the ideal test to be done. Okay, the color of the stool is black. Yeah, that is expected. So if your child is on iron supplements, the stool will be black. So that is normal. I don't know whether they didn't tell you that. See, this is why it's so important for us that which is one of the reasons we also don't prescribe drugs and all that. So when people give drugs, they need to explain all these things to you. All right. So when your child is getting iron supplement, you should expect their stools to be black or brown or even greenish. So that is normal. So the color of the stool in a child who is on iron supplements is supposed to be black or brown, or yeah, can be greenish. So that is normal. So your doctor should have told you that, Major Evans, that you should expect that. In fact, normally if people tell me my baby's stool are black, the first question you want to ask them is your child taking iron supplements, because that's the commonest reason. And a lot of parents actually give their children iron supplement, so aka blood tonic, without even asking us whether they should be giving it or not. So it is normal for a child who have iron deficiency and is on iron supplement for their stools to be black. However, I worry about the fact that your child was prescribed Astifa, because Astifa formulation is actually meant for adults and not for 6 month old. So the dose of Astifa, because iron is one of those um drugs that we can easily overdose on. So it's very important that the dose is correct, and the dose is based on the weight, and there's a maximum weight, maximum dose. So usually we don't go beyond 6 milligram per kilogram for the child. So, and for a 6 month old, let's say if your baby is weighing even 6 kilos, so that'll be 24 milligram of elemental iron. And if you look at Astifa, it usually comes as about 200 milligram in 5 minutes or so. So it's a very high dose iron preparation. So usually it's actually meant for adults. So there are other brands of iron supplement that are meant for children, because the dose of iron in them, it is low. So I personally don't like Astifa being prescribed for babies, because it's very difficult to get the small dose that your children will take, and because by the time you're working it, I mean, it may come down to maybe 1 meal or even 0 point something meals. It doesn't come up to 2.5. That 5 meals or so is like adult dose. So, and iron can be overdosed in children. Children can have too much of iron, and we can have what we call iron poisoning. So usually for me, I prefer formulation that are actually made for children, so that the dose of iron in them that the child can take will still be within your 2.55 meals that you normally will give children. So it's very, very important. A lot of doctors don't realize that because they just think, okay, children take half of the adult dose. No, children don't take half of adult dose. Children have to take dose based on their weight, and there are formulations that are appropriate for children and there are formulations that are not appropriate for children. And I think there's one drug that people tend to get wrong when it comes to that kind of distinction between children and adults. It is our iron supplements. Most of those iron supplements, Acifer and all the rest of them, they are not meant for children. They are meant for adults. They are not formulated for children at all. So you have to be very, very careful. But luckily, most of you don't take it for that long. So the chances of, but ideally, when your child is having iron deficiency, they're supposed to take the iron supplement for 3 to 6 months, and we're supposed to repeat the bloods, and we're supposed to check again the iron levels. So this is not a 1 week or 2 weeks kind of thing. So you need to know what is the PCB at the beginning. We need to know the iron levels. We give the drugs, then we'll repeat the blood test again, and that is when we will now stop the iron. So you may need to check with your doctors about that. Okay, so Loretta Moll is saying, must every child experience measles? No, every child does not have to experience measles. It is not compulsory. So measles is not a, I don't even know whether there's any condition that every child must have. There is none. I think the most common condition in children when it comes to all childhood age, maybe in the newborn period, will be jaundice, for example, 60% of children, maybe 80%. But there is hardly any condition that is 100% like it is something every child should have. Maybe a lot of children have colic, even then I can't say it is 100%. So bottom line, I'm trying to say there is no disease condition or there is no medical condition that every blessed child must have it. No, there is none, and definitely not measles, because measles is even something that no child should be having measles, because we expect every child to be immunized against measles. So if they are immunized against measles, they should not have measles, and children should not have chickenpox as well if they are immunized. And I really want you to be careful, because a lot of mothers tend to say, my child has measles, my child has chickenpox. Most of you don't get it correctly. Okay, it is not every rash that is measles. It is not every rash that is chickenpox. Some of the so-called measles that people, people will just say, any little rash on a child, oh, it is measles. Any little rash that look like there's a little bit of water inside, oh, it's chickenpox. That is not true. Okay, there are many rashes that will look alike for measles. For example, if you give your child ampiclox or amoxicillin, they can react to the medication, and the rash that they will have, which we call in medical jargons maculopapular rash, that maculopapular rash is something that they can have even from antibiotics. It is not measles at all, So a lot of mothers will say that also it is measles. No. Some children can have a little bit of rash that look like there's water inside. It is not automatically chickenpox as well. So it's very important that I don't always trust mothers to make those diagnoses, because mothers, when they see rash, if it is not each rash, then it is measles, and if it's not measles, it's chickenpox. Those are the only three things that mothers tend to think all rashes are, and that is not true. So measles has to be confirmed, and but the way to actually know the difference is that measles rash is the last thing to happen in a child who is having measles. So it is not the rash that will start first, it's the last thing that will happen. In a child who has measles, the first thing they will have is fever. So if your child has rashes, the child didn't have fever before, it's very, very, very unlikely to be measles. So there will be 3 C's of measles and the fever before the rash. So the 3 C's of measles are the child will have what we call cough, the child will have red eyes or conjunctivitis, and the child will also have coryza, like runny nose. So the child must have those 3, the cough, the conjunctivitis, and the coryza or catarrh or whatever. That's just the same there. The child must have those 3 with the fever, usually for almost a week or thereabout before they will come out with rashes. So if your child is wild, child is running around, then the child suddenly come out with rashes, very, very unlikely it's measles, even though it looks like measles, which is why as parents we should not do self-diagnosis, we should not do self-medication, because it may look like it, but it is not it. So it is not. And the same thing for chickenpox as well. Chickenpox is also preceded by fever, and then the kind of rashes children have in chickenpox tends to start on the trunk, the chest, the back, and the abdomen before it will spread over. Whereas for measles, the rash tends to start from the head. It tends to start. So if your child is having measles and it's only on the tummy or in the back, that is not measles. If you, I mean, you know what I mean when I say your child is having measles. If your child have a rash and you think it's measles, and that rash is not even involving the face, it's only on the neck or the chest, that's not measles rash. Measles rash starts from the headline, hairline, like we call it, and then it will go around to the rest of the body. So there are certain things that doctors we will look at. So it is not just the rash itself. Okay, there are other things that have to come with that rash for us to say it's measles or it's chickenpox or it's itch rash or it's an allergic reaction to something, because there are a lot of look-alike in medicine. That is why doctors do what they call diagnosis, because we have to. That's why we ask you several questions. That is why we examine the child. There are many things that will look alike, but they are not the same. They look alike, but they're not the same. So measles is one of those conditions that there are lots of other conditions or other skin rashes. Even your what we call German measles, the rubella, it actually look like measles as well, but it's not measles. So there are many skin rashes that can look like measles and they are not measles. And some of parents will tell me the way to know is that a lot of parents will come and say, my child has had measles 3 times, 4 times. It is very unlikely for your child to have measles more than once. Measles is one of those conditions, once your child has it, then they tend to develop what we call lifelong immunity. So they very, very unlikely have measles twice. But people tell me their children have measles every month. Immediately I know it's not measles, it is something else the child is having. The child is having a rash. The rash that tends to happen every often is more likely an allergic kind of condition, because the child keep getting exposed to that condition and the child keep having the rashes. So that is not measles. So don't make self diagnosis. Loretta Moll, I hope you're still with me. Don't make self diagnosis of measles, and don't make self diagnosis of chickenpox. If you think your child has what look like measles or what look like chickenpox, the best option is to come to us, see the pediatricians, and let us do our own assessment so we can treat. And while we're still on that, the reason why I'm also very particular about parents not making self diagnosis of measles, that most of the parents who make self diagnosis, let me not talk of those of us who are here, then the next thing they want to do is to start giving the children some so-called drugs, which in people will say, oh, it will make the rashes to come out, it will let it come out from the inside. All those things is not true, and all those one is myths and just old wife fables. Okay, measles is not coming from the inside. It is not coming. It's a viral infection. It's a virus called measles causing it. It has certain symptoms and all that. Our worry about measles is not even the rash. The rash is the least of our problem when it comes to measles, because the rash is going to go away. We don't need to do anything. It may be itchy, make the child uncomfortable, but the rash is going to go away. Max 2 weeks, the rash will go away. But what we worry about measles are the complications of measles. So measles can cause blindness, especially if your child is also vitamin A deficiency, vitamin A deficient, which is why we always make sure the children get vitamin A every 6 months, because measles can lead to the conjunctivitis. It can cause some damages to the eyes as well, and the child can go blind from that. Also, measles can cause pneumonia, and measles pneumonia can really be very bad. And you see, the problem is that when a child has measles kind of lower the child's immunity, and it makes it easier for all the other infections to come on top. So it's like when Yoruba people say that when a small a small insult brings you down, then or other ones will come on top. That is exactly how measles work. So when measles affect a child, the child's immunity is down, so the child is prone to having pneumonia, the child is prone to having conjunctivitis and blindness, the child is prone to having malnutrition because the child won't be able to eat and all that. So then it makes it easier for the child to be very sick, and then the child can it can kill some children, which is what we're trying to avoid here. So but the most important thing is that make sure your child is immunized, because once your child is immunized, they really will not have measles. And if by some reasons there's certain very rare circumstances that can still lead to a child who has been immunized having measles, even if they have that measles, it's going to be very mild, very mild. And this is why we actually give 2 doses of measles vaccine, so that if we don't catch it the first time, we will catch it the second time. It's very unlikely for you to escape us twice. So make sure you take 2 doses of measles. You take one at 9 months and you take one at 15 months. Okay, Loretta, I'm happy that you are listening and I hope you have learned a lot. So please don't take self-diagnosis of measles from experienced mothers. All those experienced mothers, those are their favorite diagnosis. If it's not measles, it's heat rash. The number of time people tell me, oh, is this rash? I think my baby has heat rash. How can heat rash be going on for 1 week, 2 weeks? That's not heat rash. And then it's not as if the weather is hot or anything at that time. So everything's not heat rash. And then there are places where you shouldn't be seeing heat rashes. So people, heat rashes tend to be on the face, on the hands, but you are seeing something inside, maybe for example under the nappies and all that. That cannot be heat rash. I mean, heat rash doesn't tend to happen in such places. So let's avoid as much as possible self-diagnosis. Let's see our doctors. And please do not give 7 keys while we are still on measles. That is another most terrible thing that people do when children have so-called measles. Then they say go and give them 7 keys, because the 7 keys will make the rashes to come out. See, no, the 7 keys is not making the measles rash to come out. The 7 keys is actually causing another dangerous skin condition we call Steven Johnson syndrome. It will look as if the child is burnt and the child didn't have any hot water poured on them, but the child will come out with what look like burns, and it can kill children. 50% of people who have Steven Johnson's die, and most of the common cause, apart from septrin, the another cause is taking all these 7 keys, all these herbal remedies people give children. Please don't give your child. If your child have measles, just give them paracetamol, give them lots of water. If they're seriously coughing or their eyes is discharging, you have to bring them to the hospital, because that is complicated. Luckily, most children who have measles is really mild and nothing will happen to them. But if you notice anything, you have to come to the hospital. If your child is having rashes that are looking like becoming like burns and all that, you have to come to the hospital. Don't do self-medication at home. So I hope that is helpful for Larita Mom. All right. So thank you for those of us who are just joining us. If you have any questions, I don't have any question from YouTube yet or LinkedIn, but if you have any question, feel free to ask. We've been kind of going around the immunization of vaccine preventable diseases kind of picture. So we've talked about there's an outbreak of diphtheria. Diphtheria is one of those vaccine preventable diseases. It's one of the vaccines we covered in Penta vaccine, or the old DPT. And ideally, our children should be getting booster doses. So we're calling on the Nigerian government to introduce the booster doses of DPT, or at least even just a cellular diphtheria, cellular pertussis and diphtheria and the tetanus, just make sure our children get booster doses, because once they are around 18 months, the immunity begins to wane and we need to give them boosters. Unfortunately, we're not doing it right now. In other countries, they do give their children boosters, so we're not surprised. And the government is saying, but the reason why the government is not so encouraged with the boosters is that the government complains that even the first 3 doses that they gave us for free, many of us are not taking them. So they've given us the ones that are free. We have not taken them. So why should they be encouraged to give us more? And like I always say, there's no free lunch, even in Freetown. Everything that is free somebody is paying for it. Okay, even the vaccines that we're taking for free, it's not free. Somebody is paying for it. The government is paying for it. We are getting it for free, but somebody is paying. So the government does not get encouraged when we don't take our immunization. I think DPT is one that many members forget. We tend to remember BCG because obviously it is at birth when the baby is born. Then we remember to go for the 6 weeks. Then by the time it's going to 10 weeks, some mothers are forgotten. By the time it's going to the 14 weeks, majority are forgotten completely. And then some don't even remember 9 months, they don't remember 15 months. And now we are even having the 7 years, 10, 9 years old, our HPV, please. And these days we have technology, we have our smartphones, or to just program it with all the dates of your child's immunization. It will remind you. So please, let's remember to take our children for these vaccines. Let's avoid these outbreaks, because unfortunately when there's outbreak, everybody can be affected, including your neighbors, including your, not only your own children. So we all can do good by ensuring that our children are all fully immunized. And if you have mixed any, please go to the nearest health center, show them your immunization card. At least for children under the age of 5, we'll still try and give you the mixed ones as well, so that your children can be protected against vaccine preventable diseases. All right, thank you. So I think I will let it rest on vaccine and vaccine preventable diseases. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask and we'll try and deal with it. When it comes to rashes, I know a lot of parents ask questions about rashes. Unfortunately, rashes have to be seen, which is not conducive for a live program, because it's very difficult for you to post a picture on a live program. But if you have skin rashes, the best thing is not to do anything. Okay, actually sometimes I think some of the things we do to correct skin rashes, we actually end up making them worse. So some of those rashes, some of them don't need any treatment, to be fair. For example, if a child is reacting to something, you know, it is not a matter of giving them Tributan or applying something on their bodies. The most important thing is to figure out first, why is this child having this rash? So if, for example, the child is allergic, maybe if the child is 6 months old, you've introduced something new as part of complementary feeding, or your doctor has prescribed an antibiotic and you're giving it, and the child starts having rashes. So that may actually be the cause. So the answer to that is just to stop what it is that the child is allergic to, rather than applying anything. So a lot of parents, when they ask questions about rashes, they always ask the doctor, what do I apply? And I always find that question very frustrating, because it's just lack of understanding. It is not what you should apply first that you should be asking. The question you should ask first is why, why? Because that's the most important question, because the why is what will determine the how do we treat it, or how do we get rid of this rash. So if a child is having a rash that is an allergic reaction to something, then it is a very simple thing. Stop whatever it is that you are exposing the child to. Sometimes it may be straightforward, and a lot of mothers are very sensible, and they will like, oh, I know that this rash started when we started this new milk, or when I changed the soap, or when I changed the diaper. So it's very straightforward. So the question is just go back to what was working before, or stop the new thing. Or if it's something like medication, for example, we have to look for an alternative medication. So that is what we normally do. But if it is not a reaction or something, then the question is what is causing it. So if it's a viral infection, for example, we don't have any particular treatment for viruses. That's the honest truth. Most viruses are going to run their course and then they are going to go. So you can't force them to leave earlier, you can't force them to leave later. They run their course. So if a child has for example, measles rash or even chickenpox, there's nothing you're going to apply to it to make it better. There's nothing. All those so-called, what do we normally apply? Calamine lotion. It's just to soothe. It reduces the itching, the tendency of the child to scratch themselves. It doesn't treat the rash itself. It's a soothing thing for the children, so it makes them less itchy, but it's not treating the rash. That measles rash or chickenpox rash is going to take is 1 week, before it will go, no matter what you do. So you just have to wait for it and it will go. So there are some conditions like it's watch and wait. No matter what we do, we have to wait for it to run its course and go. But there are conditions we can treat, like if a child has bacterial infection, maybe boils, we can treat with antibiotics. If a child has fungal infection, we can treat, like a child who has all these ringworms and stuff like that, we can treat those ones. So there are certain things we can treat. So when it comes to rashes, don't jump to doctor, what should I use? What should I give? No. The first thing you should ask is why. And then and I'm saying this so that when you also go to the hospital, because a lot of us when we go to hospital, we focus more on what the doctor is going to write for us or what the doctor is going to give us. We don't seem to understand what is going on, and that's why some of us do come back and we feel as if the doctors don't know what they're doing or it's not working. Sometimes it's better to also understand what is going on first. Then that's more relevant than rushing to get what is doctor writing, what is the prescription that I'm going to take home with you. And always try and ask that question whenever you go to your doctors. Before, even if they write everything for you, always ask them what is wrong with my child. Ask that question. And they may not be able to tell you quite all right. We always don't know everything. We may have some guesses, educated guesses, informed guesses as professionals as to what we think is wrong. I think what we should be able to tell you, that's it. We must always ask that question before you leave your doctors. We must always ask it. And if the doctor is writing something for you, you must always ask what that drug is meant to do. Some of us just assume that, for example, if your child is having diarrhea, if I write something for you, you may assume wrongly that I'm writing something to stop the diarrhea. Most of the time, I'm not writing anything to stop the diarrhea. I know diarrhea is going to stop by itself. So, for example, I will write you ORS and oral sink. The ORS and the oral sink is not meant to stop the diarrhea. So when you get home and give the ORS and the oral sink, and the diarrhea does not stop, then you think, oh, this doctor does not know work. But it's because you didn't understand what I'm trying to do. Because what I'm trying to do is not to stop the diarrhea. What I'm trying to do is to replace what the child is losing, which is more important than stopping the diarrhea, because there's nothing I'm going to do to stop the diarrhea. Most of them are due to viral infection. They are going to run their course. If there's anything you're going to take home today, is that when children have condition from viruses, you can't do nothing about it. Most of them will run their course and then they will go. But what we want to do is to minimize the complications and the side effects and the damage that they are going to leave behind. So if a child is having diarrhea, for example, from most of them, rotavirus, that's why we give your child rotavirus vaccine. The most important thing for diarrhea is the dehydration. The child is losing water, the child is losing electrolytes. The dehydration is what can cause the child to go into shock. That's what can kill the child. So what I really want to do is to make sure that child does not get dehydrated, the child does not go into shock. All those electrolytes the child is losing, the deficiency can cause problem. The tummy can become swollen from potassium deficiency. The heart can stop breathing from stop beating rather from potassium deficiency. So what we want to do is to replace all those in the child is losing that can cause their own issues. So that's why I want to give your child ORS. That's all. I want to give your child ORS. So the child is getting water, the child is getting electrolyte, the potassium, the child is getting the bicarbonates. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to stop the diarrhea because I know the diarrhea will stop on its own. Then I'll give oral zinc because I want to heal the guts, because when the child has the diarrhea, the viruses have bound to the intestinal lining and the body kind of just get rid of it, just remove everything, and they all come out with the stool as well. So I want the body to produce a new set of lining of the intestine so that will be easier for the body to absorb water and electrolytes. So that's why I give oral zinc to speed up the healing of that and to prevent future episodes of diarrhea and pneumonia. So I'm not giving the oral zinc to stop the diarrhea. Now I've given that as an example to let you know that sometimes when we give you drugs, it may not be what you think we're trying to do. So for example, if I give you anti-malaria, I'm treating the malaria. I want the malaria to go away. I want the jam, the plasmodium that has been injected into the blood. I want it to die. I want it to go away. But that is a straightforward curative treatment. So I give you for 3 days and I expect the malaria to go away. So that is a straightforward one. That is what most parents will expect. But if it is diarrhea, I'm not giving you the ORS or the oral zinc to kill the virus. I can't kill that virus. The virus is going to go by itself, but I want to replace. So there are different reasons why we give drugs, and it's not always to take care of the original problem. Sometimes we are giving the drugs to do something completely different, either to mitigate or to kind of relieve. For example, if your child has measles and I give you calamine lotion, the calamine lotion is not treating the measles. The calamine lotion is to make the child, because I know what is really disturbing the child is that itching. Is that itching and scratching that is making the child uncomfortable. So when I give the calamine lotion, it's kind of suits the child. When your child is having fever and I give paracetamol, the paracetamol is not to treat the fever. Okay, the cause of the fever can still be malaria, it could still be infection. I still have to treat that separately, but I'm giving the paracetamol to reduce the fever. It won't take away the fever. So if I just give you only paracetamol and then that's all, then the fever will keep coming back because I've not addressed the underlying cause of the fever itself. So if the underlying cause of the fever is something bacteria, I can give you antibiotics. If it's malaria, I can give you anti-malaria. If it's virus, I can't give you anything for that. So that is why, for example, measles, now we don't have any drug for measles because it's a virus. I can only give you paracetamol to make the fever go down. I can give you the child to drink a lot of water so the child doesn't get dehydrated. I can apply calamine lotion to soothe the child from itching. But all I'm trying to do is just keep the child comfortable while waiting for the measles to pack his bag and leave. After like 2 weeks, it's going to go by itself. So I just want you also to understand that concept of what doctors do. So which is why it's so important that when you go to the hospital or when doctor is giving you drugs, you ask the question, what is this drug meant to do? So the doctor can explain to you. And finally, you must always ask for side effects of the medication to watch out for, because some of us, like Major Evers, your question now is actually a very good example of that. So when we give you drugs, it is not enough, which is why I don't prescribe drugs online. For those of you who are coming from our Facebook group, you know we don't prescribe, because there's a lot more that goes into medication than just saying go and take, and that's why it's always so amazing to me when I see mothers just tell their fellow mothers, go and buy Ampiclos, go and buy Augmentin. You don't understand there are lots more issues in that, uh, in telling somebody to take drugs. It's not just taking the drugs. So for example, when we give you drug, we need to tell you what side effect to watch out for. So like Major was asking about the child still being black because the child was taking iron supplements, because nobody has told you that you should expect that. And then you were already worried, you could have caused you a lot of anxiety, which is why it's so important that when we give you drugs, we explain to you what side effects to watch out for. So if I'm giving your child Ampiclos or Amoxicillin, I'm already telling you your child can have rashes and the rashes can look like measles. Don't panic. It is the Ampiclos. It is one of the side effects. Okay. If I'm giving your child iron supplements, the iron supplement can cause black stools. Don't worry, it is the iron supplement. There are some side effects that we don't bother. We know it can happen. It's not a big deal. Like the color of the stool being black, it's not a big deal. I know it's the iron. It doesn't cause any harm to the child. It's nothing to worry about. So just ignore it. So there are some side effects we tell you, don't worry about it, just leave it, it's no problem at all. But there are side effects that I want you to tell me if it happens, and I may want to stop the medication. So for example, if I give your child Ampiclos and the child starts having rashes, I want you to call me and say, Doc, my child is having rashes and I want you to stop it. I want you to stop that medication. So I always tell patients, if you see these side effects, you must stop the medication and you must call me, you must come back so that I can give you an alternative. But there are some side effects I'll tell you, if you see this side effect, don't worry. I expect it's going to go. Just like if the color of the switching to black because of iron supplements, I don't expect you to do anything about it. Just leave it alone. But if your child have rashes because of Ampiclos or Amoxicillin, I want you to call me. I may want you to stop the drugs. For example, if you take Ampiclos, your babies may start passing watery stools. The stool may look watery, or the child can actually have frank diarrhea. Most of the times, because I know it's a temporary thing, some of us will still continue to give the ampiclos or amoxi because the diarrhea is not a big deal for us. So sometimes I may not stop the medication, but I just want you to be aware why, so you don't start to panic about it. But there are some like rashes or the child have blisters on the mouth. I want you to stop the medication straight away, and I want you to come and I want to give you something different to do the same effect. So you must always ask whenever they give you medication, what side effects should I expect? And what do I do with this side effect? So if I see this side effect, don't worry. If I see the other side effect, you must stop medication. You must come back to your doctors. Another good thing to do is to read the leaflets. It always amazes me how many times people will tell me they've taken the medication before they read the leaflets, and then they will now come and say, oh, but I've already taken the medication and now saw this side effect. What do I do? And I'm like, there is no emergency in taking medication. There is no any medication that's an emergency for you to take. We the doctors will give you in the hospital. We won't allow you to go home and take it. We will likely give you as an injection because it's an emergency. Otherwise, any medication that we give you to take home by yourself, there's no emergency about taking it. So in other words, take your time. Don't swallow medication before you read the leaflet. It doesn't make sense. That is like putting, you say, the cat before the horse or the horse just the cat. I'm always mixing it up. Anyway, bottom line is you should read the leaflet first. That's one of the benefits of education. That's why female education for us as pediatrician, it's a big deal. You know, people would wonder what is the link between a mother who is educated and a child living. It's a big deal. A mother who is educated, the chances of her child surviving is far higher than a mother who is illiterate. That has been proven. So one of the child survival strategies is female education. It's one of the reasons we promote girl education. It's one of the reasons we want our girls to go to school, irrespective of whatever. So people say, oh, why do you want to send girls to school? That's why they are going to become mothers, or they're going to end up in the kitchen and all those kind of nonsense that some people say. But it's beyond that. Even if she's going to end up in the kitchen, and even if she's going to end up as a housewife, I still want her to be educated, because I want her to be able to read and know when which medication side effect she's going to give to her child. I want her to be able to think of when she needs to come to the hospital. Whereas an uneducated girl will not be able to do that. So that's why mothers who are educated, their children do much better. And of course, they are going to also space their children, and they're also going to seek healthcare on time. And most of them are financially empowered, so they're not going to wait for an husband before they will give paracetamol to a child. So it's very important that our girls are educated. So female education is child survival strategy, and one of the reasons why it's so important is so that you can read. You can read the leaflets of medication. Please read before you give your child medication. And please always check the dose again and again and again. Don't assume. A lot of mistake mothers make sometimes, everything is not 5 meals. All the drugs are not 5 meals when it comes to children. And it's not like adults, everybody is taking 2 tablets. No, it's not the same. In children, everything is different. And everything is not 5 meals. So we are very specific with the dose. If we say it's 4 meals, it's 4 meals. And if we say it's 3 times a day, we may mean it to be 8 hours. It's not the same thing as you take it anytime you like. Sometimes you have to take it at 6 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, and at 10 p.m. It's very specific timing. So please, all those things are important. And let's always check. And don't delegate those kind of tasks. Don't delegate giving children medication to your other children who are older, because it can be dangerous. So read the leaflets and make sure, if you read the leaflets, and sometimes I love that many of you will read leaflets and then you come and say, doc, this leaflet said this, but my doctor said this. What is this solution? It's a very good thing to do. Feel free to ask your doctor, because we doctors have what we call ability to use a medication off label. That means that we can use a medication beyond what the manufacturer says. So the manufacturer will say, I tested this medication in children between 5 to 10 years, so I don't recommend it for children under 5 years and all that. So, but we may decide that, this medication, that the good thing that medication is going to do is much more better than the fact that it has not been tested in a child who is less than 5. So we're going to try it. So doctors are allowed to do what we call off-label use of medication. Another way, we can use medication that's the manufacturer will say, I don't recommend it for this age group, or I don't recommend it in this scenario. But doctors, because we have better understanding of why we're using the medication, we're also aware of the risk we are taking. And if the benefits far outweigh the risk, then we're going to use the medication. So it is called off-label use of medication. So don't panic and don't start abusing your doctor. That means doctor doesn't know work. It just means that the doctor is using the medication, but you must clarify, because sometimes it's an honest mistake. Doctors are human beings. We make mistakes. Some people don't have all the knowledge. So I see a lot of parents whose babies are less than 2 years old parading loratadine and saying, my doctor gave me loratadine. Is not meant to be used in children under the age of 2. So there are some clear ones that, because there are alternatives, we can use Piriton in a child less than 2. So why do you want to give loratadine? So those ones are separate, but there are also certain scenarios where we would do that, but not for every medication. So always ask and always clarify. Yes, Loretta, you are right. Sometimes the dose the doctors write is different from the dose the one written. Do you mean the one written by the pharmacist or the one written in the package? So sometimes because the manufacturers tend to write what we call average dose for everybody. So they will say children 6 months to 2 years take this, children 2 years to 5 years take this. But we as pediatricians, for example, we don't use that. We because sometimes your 10 months old may weigh more than a 2-year or another 2-year old. So it's not the same. So as much as possible, pediatricians, we use the weights of the child. We don't use age, because age does not always mean bigger or smaller. I'm sure all of you know what I mean, what I'm trying to say. So go by your doctor's prescription, because it tends to be better, because we, at least if I believe you're using the right doctors anyway. So if you're using the right doctor, especially if you're seeing a pediatrician, go by the dose that we prescribe. And I always try to tell parents the dose. The number of times people come and ask us dosage on ATP is alarming. Honestly, alarming to me. Please don't leave the front of the doctor without knowing the dose of that medication you're going to give. I don't take responsibility for telling people the dose of the doctor's medication. Never, because it's a risk that once I do that, I'm taking over that risk from your doctor. We should have been the one to tell you. We should have been the one taking that risk. So if anything happens, you say, "Oh, it's Dr. Gbemisola that said I should take 2.5 mils or 5." No, I don't. You can notice that when Evans was asking me about the dose, I'm not going to comment on that, because I don't know the weight of your child. I don't know what are these. Some children are allergic to certain medication. So how do I know that your child is not allergic to penicillin, or your child is not allergic to Fancida? So I'm not going to take that responsibility, because that's the responsibility of the person who is prescribing. So a lot of people will come to ATP and ask questions about what dose they should give medication. We don't ever do that, because number one, I'm not even sure your child should be taking that medication to start with. Number two, I don't know whether your child have allergy profiles. That I don't know. I've not seen your child. I'm not your child's doctor. So, and these are all the things that go into prescribing medication. If your child has reacted to amoxil before, I'm not going to prescribe it again, and I'm not likely going to prescribe other family of amoxil. So I'm not going to give you cloxacillin or all the other penicillin. So I'm going to start looking for something completely out of that family. I'm not even going to give a nearby family like the cephalosporin, the Xanax, and the rest of them. So these are very important issues. That's why medication is not something anybody can just say, go and take. We are just lucky that most of those children that have allergic reactions and idiosyncratic reactions to medication, there are not many. So we all get away with murder, but it's really a dangerous thing. I've seen a child take Phenergan and collapsed and died just in front of us. I mean, it can't be less dramatic than that. I mean, that is how terrible drugs can be. So please, luckily we don't do a lot of Phenergan anymore. We don't do a lot of injection chloroquine, but those were those days of giving CQ and Phenergan, and see children just collapsed straight away. Children that walked into the hospital, then they just get this injection, and then bam, they are gone. So please, we have to be very careful medication. make sure you ask your doctors all this question. Ask them also for the dosage because they are responsible for it. And the dose of medication depends on the weight of the child. It depends on what am I treating. So if I'm treating your child for example, pneumonia compared to if I'm treating for boil, the dose may be different. It's the same child, the same weight, but the dose will be different because sometimes we give higher dose for worse infection or more serious infection, if you like, and whereas we give a lower dose for, and these things are, they are all clearly spelled out. That is why nobody should just say you go and use any medication. No, they have to be, and make sure the person who is selling the medication has taken in all those information. They've asked you whether your child is allergic. Has your child reacted to Fancida before? Before we give you Septrin, if your child has reacted to Fancida, we're not going to give you Septrin because it's a sulfur containing drugs. They are the same kind of suffer, so your child will likely react to it again. So it's very important that we have all those information before we give drugs, which is why you will never see us prescribe drug online because we don't have time to do that. It's a full consultation to do all that, so it's not something we have capacity, and that's why we don't take it over when you come and tell us my doctor write these drugs for me, they didn't tell me dose, they didn't. No, that's not our responsibility to do that because it's a lot of more work to do. But if you are not clear, the best person to always go to is your doctor. Sometimes we doctors and pharmacists we disagree of medications as well. Sometimes we doctors will make mistakes, but the pharmacists are very good. They pick up our errors, but they are not meant to be just telling you to discard your doctor's prescription. A good pharmacist will call the doctor and say, Doc, this is what you wrote, this is what I think, what do you want me to do? So, and the doctor can explain to the pharmacist whether, oh, it was a mistake, can you please do this, or I deliberately did this because of this, because of that. So, but I see a lot of you also come back to us and say, my doctor wrote this, then my pharmacist say my child should not take that medication, is the wrong dose or is the wrong drug or for the child's age. It is wrong, and I'm sure my pharmacist colleague knows that you're not meant to change our prescription. You are not meant to do that. If you have any issues with the prescription, you may not dispense it. You can call the doctor, but you can tell the patient to go back to the doctor because you think there may have been an error, but it's not to just tell patient don't use the medication or give an alternative. That is actually wrong because that is not the job of the pharmacist to prescribe the medication. The job of the pharmacist is to make it and to dispense it and to use it according to the way the doctor wants. If the pharmacists have any issues with what the doctor is doing, they are also professional in their own rights. They can call it out, usually with the doctor who wrote it. That's why we normally write our name and we sign prescription. We don't just ask you to buy, So, and that's why it's also dangerous for you to just go to pharmacist yourself and just say, give me this, give me that. You're taking a lot of dangerous risk. All right. So I think I've talked on a lot of issues today, but if you have any questions on that, we've talked about immunization and the vaccine preventable diseases. We've talked about drugs. We've talked about when you go for consultation, what you should be asking your doctor. You have your rights as patients, and we have our responsibilities as the professionals. So we all should be doing the right thing and making sure we get it right. But if you have any questions on that, feel free to post on our Facebook group, our Telegram group, and we'll try and answer them. Thank you so much. I think my time is almost up, and I'll be going soon. On Thursday, we will do another teaching, so watch out for any of our teachings. And I encourage you to go through the old ones. We've talked about so many of these things in details. I think last week I talked about fever, so please listen. You can watch them on our YouTube channel. You can watch them or listen to them on our podcast channel. And you can also read some of them on our website as well. So just learn. Our goal is to just be your support as you raise children, but we want you to raise healthy children. We want you to raise children that are live. We don't want our children to die from things that are completely preventable and treatable. That's what we do on ATP, and we've been doing that for the past 10 years. And we look forward to doing it more because our children, they are worth it. We look forward to that day when no child in Nigeria will die from things that we can treat and things that we can prevent. That will be that day when our job will be done. Like we know that nobody is dying again from preventable causes. Right now, we still have the highest number of children dying under the age of 5. That is not a good something we should be proud of. And that is something that we in HCP, along with every other pediatrician, UNICEF, WHO, all of us working together to see that we bring that figures down drastically, preferably to zero if possible. I know it's not always possible to completely say no death at all, but at least we want to reduce it as much as possible. So thank you so much for listening to me. Don't worry, our Facebook will be back soon. We're sorting it out. And then we'll see you again. Myself or any of my colleagues will be doing a teaching on Thursday on another important topic that has to do with the death of your children. But if you have any questions, feel free to go to our we have Telegram group, we have Facebook group. So feel free to go to any of our groups. That's the way you can get your answers faster. But you can also ask on our website, our YouTube channel, all of our platforms. Follow us on every social media platform that we have. And I hope you learn a lot. Till I see you again next week, by God's grace, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. This is bye from me. Bye bye.